No angel was expected to guard liberty in 1788. That is the strange plain key to Federalist No. 51. James Madison did not ask for perfect men. He asked how flawed men could be trusted with power. Picture James Madison in 1788, setting one hard thought before the people. The answer begins with a word that sounds dangerous, yet was meant to protect freedom. Madison wrote that ambition must be made to counteract ambition. He meant that men love power. They seek it. They hold it. They often tell themselves they use it for good. So the Constitution did not place all power in one hand. Picture Articles 1, 2, and 3, set like three strong posts in the ground. Congress would make the laws. The president would carry them out. The courts would judge what the law means. But why would a wise man ask power to fight power? That question leads to the heart of the whole design. The answer is plain. Power is safest when it meets a lawful rival, not a mob, not a sword, not a king, a rival bound by law. Picture Congress, with the power to make laws, standing inside Article 1. Picture the president, with the duty to carry law into life, standing inside Article 2. Picture the courts with judges reading the Constitution before they judge a case, standing inside Article 3. Each branch has a task, each has a line, each has a will of its own. Madison did not think this was rude. He thought it was wise. If men were angels, no guard would be needed. But government is made for men as they are, not as angels in a book. A lawmaker may want too much reach. A president may want too much speed. A judge may think his own view is the whole truth, so each branch must be strong enough to say no. Yet one danger hides inside this cure. The same force that guards liberty can also wound the public good. If every branch seeks only to win, the people lose. Laws stall, duties wait. Trust falls. Courts are scorned. Officers fear to act. This is why the Constitution is not a plan for endless war. It is a plan for lawful strain. The next question is, how much strain a free people can bear? This is the hard balance. Too little strain and power gathers. Too much strain and government cannot serve. Madison sought a middle road. Each branch must defend its ground, yet each must know it serves the same people. Imagine a veto on the president's desk, stopping a bill for one more look. That veto may anger Congress, yet it can guard the nation from haste. Picture Congress in oversight, asking why public power was used. That may vex the president, yet it can remind him that power is a trust. Picture a court in judicial review, saying an act must bow to the Constitution. That may vex both Congress and the president, yet it can keep law above will. This sounds hard, but liberty is often kept by hard things. Still, no branch is pure light. Congress can be proud. A president can be bold past measure. A court can be wrong. Madison knew this. His plan did not make men holy. It made their power answerable. Ambition would press against ambition. Duty would press against pride. Law would press against heat. But what if danger comes before all three branches can speak? That is where paper law meets iron need. In calm times, checks are easy to praise. In peril, they are harder to keep. Then men begin to ask if speed should rule. They ask if one hand must act before all hands can join. This is where the lesson grows grave. Picture 1861, with Civil War upon the Union, and Abraham Lincoln facing a broken land. I stood as president in a time when the nation itself was in peril. I suspended the writ of Habeas Corpus before Congress had approved it. Chief Justice Roger Taney said this power belonged under Article 1, where Congress stands. Picture Chief Justice Roger Taney pointing to Article 1, warning that even war must meet the law. He had a duty to speak. I had a duty to act. This was not a small quarrel. It was Madison's warning made real. The executive claimed need. The judge claimed boundary. Congress would have to answer in its time. Each branch showed its own ambition. Each pressed its own claim. The question was not whether power would move. The question was whether power would still answer to law. Think of my message to Congress on July 4, 1861. I asked whether I must shoot a simple soldier boy, yet not touch a hair of a wily agitator. I said, "I shall prefer to save the Union." Those words carried weight. Yet I knew this also. Liberty cannot live if need becomes a habit. A hard act in a hard hour must still face the nation, the courts, and Congress. There lies the great test. Energy is needful in danger. Restraint is needful in freedom. A president who never acts may fail his oath. A president who will not be checked may wound the Constitution. A Congress that guards its power protects the people. A Congress that only fights may forget the people. A court that speaks with courage keeps law alive. A court that seeks rule over all may step beyond its robe. The hard part is knowing when need has become a habit. That line is not kept by words alone. It is kept by forms, votes, reasons, records, and public judgment. Power must explain itself. Power must accept limits. Power must return to its proper place when the storm is past. This is not weakness. It is strength under rule. Federalist No. 51 teaches that free government is not kept by trust alone. It is kept by trust joined to checks. Trust says, "Let good men serve." Checks say, "Let no man rule alone." Trust says, "Act for the public good." Checks say, "Prove it under law." Both are needed. One without the other will fail. Such delay can try the soul. Citizens grow tired of branches that clash. They ask why leaders cannot simply agree. At times that question is fair, but quick agreement is not always wise. A single will can move fast. A king can move faster than a Congress. A master can move faster than a court. Speed is not the same as freedom. There is another duty here, and it belongs to the citizen. Do not love checks only when they strike your foe. Do not hate limits only when they bind your friend. If a veto is good only when your side uses it, you have not loved the Constitution. If oversight is good only when it harms the man you dislike, you have not loved the law. If courts are honored only when they please you, then law has become a tool. The citizen must be steadier than that. A free people must bless limits, even when limits disappoint them. They must honor lawful defeat. They must ask not only, "Did my side win?" but "Did power keep faith?" Hope is not soft. It is the courage to live under rules when passion wants a shortcut. Madison's lesson is not old dust. It is a living guard. The branches must have will. They must have duty. They must have bounds. They must check one another without tearing the house down. That is the narrow road. That is the wise road. The Republic can be saved. When power asks for trust, will you still ask it to keep faith with the law?